Okay. So, where do you work right now? You do mental health work with sex offenders in Kansas?
Yes.
Okay. And is that Larned State Hospital?
Yes.
Okay. Where in Kansas is that?
Larned, Kansas.
Larned, Kansas? Okay. Okay. And from when Miss Stout came in March of 2000, going forward, was there anything unusual going on at the jail? Or was it business as normal the whole time?
She came in 2020, not 2000.
I'm sorry, 2020. Thank you.
Was there anything unusual
Yeah.
at the jail?
Yeah.
COVID?
COVID. Did you say COVID?
Yes.
Yeah. And it completely changed how everything functioned at the jail, correct?
I wouldn't say completely changed. I think we had to be more mindful of health precautions and wear masks and extra cleaning, things like that, but not.
No, you wore a mask, the employees, but the inmates weren't given masks. And that's part of the reason there was a lawsuit that WellPath and the sheriff's office settled.
Again, Your Honor, objection, relevance, and foundation.
Sustained. A jury will disregard the question. You can rephrase it. But again, nothing that the attorneys say at any point in time is evidence.
Okay. And when did this begin, the mask wearing?
I don't know.
March 2020, was the mask mandate always already in effect March 5th when you first contacted her, or was it later in the summer? When did all this happen?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you remember a COVID outbreak in the jail during your tenure there?
I remember the media alleged that.
Okay, you don't remember the jail allegedly having the largest COVID outbreak in the state?
Again, I believe that's how the media phrased it.
Okay. Do you remember the population of the jail during this time being 1,700 inmates before COVID and being lowered to about 11 or 1,200 within a few months because of the COVID threat?
So with the everyday activities at the jail, I mean, I don't really pay attention to why more or less inmates would be there. Okay. We just take care of the people who are there.
But as the health service administrator for the jail, I mean, you would notice 500 or 600 people being taken out of circulation due to medical reasons and due to the COVID pandemic.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Sustained.
Dissociative identity disorder.
Did she also talk to you about her stepfather and what her stepfather may have done to her?
Yes.
What did she say about that?
That her stepfather and uncle had sexually assaulted her during her childhood.
And is this the first time she brings that up?
Yes.
You said she only reported being molested one time to you?
That was my recollection. I believe when she first came into the jail during the receiving screening, she had reported that to the nurse doing her receiving screening intake, but I don't recall that being reported.
Okay, well, you just told Mr. Young that it was the only time that it had been reported, the molestation
to me.
To you.
You know, I'm going to object us to that. That's not the question was. The question was with regards to her stepfather and uncle.
Oh, overruled.
Dissociative identity disorder.
So the deputies had asked me to follow up with her because that was the day that we were informed that Gannon's body was found in Florida. And so they wanted me to check in with her because that is a significant event in anybody's life. And so they wanted me to check in and follow up with her.
Were you, as far as you know, the first person to tell her that Gannon's body was discovered?
I believe so.
Did you tell her where Gannon's body was found?
No.
If you can refer to your note, did she tell you where Gannon's body was found?
So I would have gone up to her and just let her know that his body, you know, that obviously that he had passed because previous to that he was alleged to be missing. So now that he was confirmed to have not been alive. I don't believe that I said that he was in Florida.
And did she tell you whether or not she had even ever been to Florida?
Yes, she said that she was never in Florida.
Okay. And if she didn't have anything to do with Gannon's disappearance, how would she know he was found in Florida?
Correct.
That's the significance?
Yes.
Okay. Did you know that her attorneys earlier that day had been to visit her?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but if that
And
was
they had
proven-
actually told her that Gannon's body had been found?
Sustained. Jury will disregard.
visitation log reports.
And is it the visitation log reports for Ms. Stauch
Yes.
at the El Paso County Jail?
Is hearsay. Can't testify to what that is. If they want to get somebody that can lay a proper foundation for this document, that's fine. This is not the person to do that.
Well, she may be, she may not be. I don't know that. You need to ask her whether or not it's a business record and whether she can lay the foundation for a business record.
You recognize this document as a business record?
Yes.
Surprise question, right? Is this something that's routinely kept at the jail and is actually an open record for the public?
Yes.
And is this a business record with regards to professional visits of Ms. Stauch?
Yes.
And would this reflect any professional visits by her attorneys in the time frame we're talking about, March 20th?
Your Honor, I'm objecting
Yes.
under Crawford. This is hearsay. I can't cross-examine this document or the person.
Your Honor, he brought this up.
Stop, both of you. I have an objection. If I want a response, I'll ask for one. The objection's overruled. Right now, we're working on laying a business record exception to the hearsay rule. So let's deal with that first. It hasn't been asked to be offered to be admitted yet, but I understand what we're dealing with. It's been identified for the record. Go ahead and move it.
And Your Honor, you advise Mr. Young to not taunt me in open court. It's actually the person who brought this up originally, so yelling across the courtroom, I don't appreciate, and I don't think it's professional.
Let's make sure we're all on the same page. I make the rulings. Everybody directs their comments to me. If there's an objection, I'll ask for grounds. I'll rule on the objection. We'll move on. So everybody, both sides, direct your comments to me. And we'll leave it at that. Mr. Young, you were in the midst of making or establishing a foundation for a business record. Go ahead.
Dissociative identity disorder. She was locked down 23 hours a day. She could be talking to God in Latin in her jail cell, and you or nobody else would even know that, would you? And you weren't able to observe what she was doing for those 23 hours a day.
The deputies would observe that and write reports.
Okay. But there's not somebody watching her those 23 hours. While she's in the jail cell. I mean, she could be eating her own feces in the jail cell and nobody would know.
Did you have any notes or any indication that Ms. Stauch was eating her own feces in the jail cell?
No.
Would you have known that if that was going to happen, if that happened?
Yes.
Dissociative identity disorder. So you can rule out a disease that symptoms may not manifest themselves for long periods of time. You can rule it out in just 20, 30, 40 minutes. Is that what you're saying?
Generally, and then if there's
Okay.
more information, I can
Now,
always
in
go back.
dissociative identity disorder,
I'm going to ask that she be allowed to finish her answer before the next question.
Sustained. You can
and I'm
ahead.
going to ask that she be more responsive to the question and answer it and not.
I understand. It seemed to me that it was responsive to the question. You can go ahead and finish your answer.
I was just trying to say that if there were other symptoms that came up, a diagnosis is something that is working. Could it be changed if new symptoms come up? Absolutely.
Dissociative identity disorder. So when you were ruling out Ms. Stauch, having bipolar disorder, which is the manic depressive stage, you said that you know, what you look for and you didn't notice was any excessive spending or partying or, you know, showing up and with a bunch of clothes and not, or clothes or whatever purchases from a store and not realizing where you got them. How are you going to notice that or rule that out based on her partying or, you know, excessive spending if she's locked up in a jail? That seems like that's kind of a no-go, but yet you told the jury this.
So we were talking about the March 5th date, and she reported none of those symptoms. So that's how I can rule it out at that time.
Okay. And is that a common sign when somebody's asked, do you suffer from this mental illness? And if they deny it, well, that's it.
Unless there's contradictory evidence to it.
Okay. Are you aware that many people that are sick will deny being sick?
I am.
Okay. Like they don't want to take their medicines. There's nothing wrong with them. You know, I like living in my crazy wide world and there's nothing wrong with me.
Sure, but there's still observable symptoms by other people just because somebody denies it. Again, as I explained, when I'm assessing somebody, I look at all of their body features, their speech, their language, movement, and did not note any of that. So that would be consistent with not having that concern at that time.
Dissociative identity disorder,